Hello again, welcome back to another video. I know, right? So, at around the time that I've posted this, hopefully, we have been streaming on our Twitch channel for about 4 years at this point. Holy moly. I guess it's time for an election. I hope you guys don't vote me out, especially since I have been neglecting this channel, I suppose. But that changes today because to celebrate 4 years of streaming, I have decided to make a tier list out of all of the games, asterisks, that we have played on stream. Oh yeah. But yeah, a few things before going into it. Obviously, if you don't know what a tier list is basically a way to sort information or things, in this case, the games that we played on stream, compared to each other, I suppose. This tier list, I made it myself. I'll post a link to it down in the description if you want to make your own, if you have any differing opinions to mine. Now, it is a little bit annoying. This isn't the best tier list I possibly could have made. I mean, I have an ad blocker literally installed, and yet the ads are still on the freaking... Nevertheless, if you do want to check it out, it is once again down in the description. So, a few things before we jump straight into it. A couple of disclaimers. So, first of all, not all the games that I have played on stream are on here. The only real exception is one game, which is Zardy's Maze. The only reason I'm not covering that one is because I don't feel like I've played it enough to fully form an opinion on it. And I wasn't too big on it. So, for the most part, this will be hopefully a very positive tier list. Although there are a few stinkers in here, but we will get to that in due time. Now, another thing is that obviously, what am I going to be rating these on? I am mostly going to be rating these on my opinion of the game. So this is going to be far from an objective tier list. I will bring up some objective points, although for the most part I will be basing games based on how much I enjoy them, which segues into our other disclaimer, which is obviously a lot of these games are probably not very fair to compare to each other. I mean, first of all, they're in different genres, they're made with different production values, stuff like that. So that is why I am mainly going to be ranking them based on just how much fun I had streaming them. And in that regard, they should be able to compare to each other a little bit better, I suppose. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, as you can see, I titled the tiers to hopefully be a bit descriptive of how I feel about them. So let's go into them. Best of the best, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory. Any of these games that really stand out amongst the rest are going to go there. I'm going to try to keep a few out of there and only really have the best of the best, but I mean, most of these games I had a really good time playing, so there might be more there than I might end up expecting, but we'll just have to see. Generally good is, once again, games that are generally good. They're not going to be perfect like the ones that are possibly going to be in best of the best. However, I would have generally had a good time streaming it, and yeah, just when stacked up against the ones against here, I would rather play the ones that are up here rather than the ones here. But overall, once again, it would still be a good game. Had some issues are ones that would be really good games, however, due to a couple of things within the game, it's being held back. So I don't exactly look back at these games with the fondest of memories, so due to that, it would go there. But still generally not a bad game. Wouldn't play again is also, once again, fairly self-explanatory. This will mainly be the boring tier. Very few of these games I had like a actual painful time playing. However, most of the ones that I generally don't look too fondly upon were just bad because they were, well, boring, so I just wouldn't play them again. And yeah, it would also probably be things like issues that if they were ironed out, they could get bumped up a tier. Not like core fundamental issues with the games, which leads us into our final tier, the torture tier. Only a few games will go in here, just like best of the best, although I will definitely explain more once we get there. Also, another thing to note as I'm going into this, obviously some of these games I have played for much longer than others, so obviously I will have had more time to form an opinion around some of them. And obviously, on that same note, some of these games I've played literally 4 years ago, so my memory of them is a bit rusty. I generally do have a pretty good memory about how each of these games went, but do keep that in mind. So if you want to refute any of my points, feel free. And I guess one last thing before we jump into it. I will generally be going through these in the order that I played them, although I will be grouping a few of them together, or a couple of them are like very similar genre-wise, so those ones are going to be easier to compare to each other. So there's 4 in particular. We'll get to that in due time. Oh, and one last thing. Potential spoilers for all the games that I played. I'm going to assume that you have watched my streams on these games, but just in case, click off now if you don't want to be spoiled for any of these games here. Although I will generally try not to mention any spoiler things, although, I mean, there's probably going to be a few parts that I won't consciously realize that I am spoiling, so just once again keep that in mind. But anyways, without further ado, I think we are ready to actually begin this tier list proper with Delver. So, you may have noticed that I'm not starting at the very start. Don't worry, I'm saving that game for later. So we are starting at Delver. So, generally, I started my streams by replaying a lot of the classic games that I played back on my YouTube days. And the first one that we started with was Delver, of course. So, what do I think of it? I'd say this game is of solid, generally good. Why is that? Well, because it is just a very well-made game. Nothing to say. I mean, it's got good gameplay, it's got really good music, also really good replayability. Now, on that note, I am honestly really surprised with myself that this wasn't the game that I was revisiting a whole bunch, because this one has infinitely more replayability than a lot of the other games that I've been replaying. I mean, there's a lot of variety in each run. It is a roguelike, of course, so of course it should. I mean, it's definitely not like the most deep and complex game. There's definitely a few later on that we'll be getting to that are definitely deeper than it. But I mean, I feel like I've kind of undersold this game, or underplayed it, I suppose. I mean, not with the rating, of course. I do think it is generally good. The only problem with it, I feel, is that I think it might be abandoned. sad to say. There are like bits of the game that kind of like tease towards like more things being added to it. However, it's been that way since back when I played it on YouTube, which is almost, like 6 years ago at this point, which is kind of unfortunate. But nevertheless, though, highly recommend this game. Solid, generally good. Alright, and then after we beat that game, which we only beat in like 2 streams, so it didn't take that long to beat as well, was Eldritch. And similarly to Delver, this is also a roguelike, but it is considerably more brutal than Delver. So at the start, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more, but after playing it, I kind of started to get a bit tired with it, particularly the New Game Plus stuff. The New Game Plus stuff was brutal. That is definitely something that I wouldn't play again. However, though, overall, was still a really good game. Yeah, just, man, that difficulty is not something to be trifled with. We were able to beat it, but this was the first game, besides another, that we really put in a bunch of streams into to try to actually beat it. And it was honestly the first really grindy game. Although, once again though, it was still a really good game. I really like the style of it. I love Lovecraft. I mean, I feel like more games should delve into that kind of aesthetic. Um, and the music was also nice. Definitely not as good as Delver, but still pretty good. Generally solid gameplay. Not perfect by any means, but once again, obviously it was captivating enough for me to get the really hard achievements. So, with all that in mind, I would also put this in generally good, however, behind Delver. I think Delver is just more fun to play at the end game than Eldritch is, and I think that's the main reason why I'm putting it below, because otherwise I feel like it would be generally on the same level, maybe just ever so slightly below. So I guess it kind of works out anyways. So yeah, generally good. And then after we played that, we dedicated one single stream to another redo of classics, Brighter Day. Unfortunately, I don't quite have the same amount of praises to give this one that I do the others because, well, there's really not much to this game, honestly. It's definitely a charming and neat experience. I do like the inclusion of all the musical elements to it when you move and jump and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, once you beat the game, you've kind of seen everything. You can, like, collect these tarot cards all over the place that kind of give, like, more backstory. However, honestly, what you do get isn't really worth it. And that's probably where we spent most of the time in that initial stream, just searching for those cards. And in the end, it did kind of feel not worth it. So, had I known that, I probably wouldn't have even actually replayed this game on stream, truth be told. And if you're wondering why I haven't replayed some of the games in my YouTube days on stream yet, the largest reason for most of them is that, well, I've kind of seen everything already. With Delver and Eldritch, them being roguelikes, my playthrough on stream was going to be different than my YouTube playthrough, just due to the nature of roguelikes. So, replaying them wouldn't have just been completely redoing everything that I did wholesale. I mean, still, the intent with Redo of Classics was to have an improved version of my original YouTube playthroughs. But some of the games were just going to be too similar, like Abzu and Aviary Attorney. Those games were basically going to be the exact same if I had replayed them on stream, and they probably wouldn't have been the most fun to stream or watch. So that's why I decided not to do those. And yeah, on that same note, since Brighter Day is pretty much going to be the same no matter how many times you replay it, I definitely feel like I probably would have been fine if I didn't replay it, but hey, I guess you gotta learn somehow. But anyways, with all that in mind, I mean, I didn't have a bad time playing it. There were definitely a few parts that you're kind of banging your head against the wall to try to get past, but for the most part, it's a neat game, you know? It's kind of hard to hate because I don't think it was really meant to be like a huge game or anything. It's definitely very small, very indie, so I can't really hate it for that. But I would say it goes directly in the had some issues tier. I think, I don't know, the best way that I would go about fixing it would probably be make it longer, I guess, and maybe have more of an incentive to actually replay it, because, not gonna lie, once again, the collecting all the tarot cards, that is a reason to replay it. However, you don't really get much out of it, I feel. And especially with how vast the areas you explore in this game are, like the big old hospital, the big cave area. I feel like there was a lot of potential for more stuff to be in there. However, they kind of, I don't know, they didn't take it as far as they could have, I suppose. But once again, I'm not gonna hate them for it or anything, so yeah. It is what it is. It had some issues, but once again, I didn't hate it. Alright, moving on. So, now we're starting to get a little out of order. We are jumping into Titan Souls. So this was a game I played in the middle of another game, which we'll get to in a second. So a little backstory with this one. I had gotten this game for free, actually, because the developers of this game were doing like a promotion for one of their games, and they made their other game, which was Titan Souls, free. Now, I had actually played this game a long time ago. I couldn't even get close to beating it. But after I'd gotten it for free, I spent the good half of like a day playing it all by myself, and I managed to fully 100% the game, and I enjoyed it so much that I really wanted to share the world with it. So this was the first game that I had prior experience outside of any sort of YouTube, outside of any sort of stream, and yeah, so I had prior knowledge going into it. There's only one other game on this list that's like that, but we'll get to that in a second. So yeah, I have definitely more of an opinion on this game, just due to that nature. But yeah, generally, because this game was kind of short, I mean, we were able to beat it in literally 2 hours when I replayed it for stream. Yeah, it's definitely condensed, and it kind of balances out, I suppose. So yeah, I guess I have about the same amount of time to have formed an opinion on it that I have with the others. So, enough stalling. What did I think about it? It was, once again, pretty good. Very unique gameplay loop for sure. And once again, pretty short. So, you're in and out. However, when you're playing it for the first time, you're definitely in, and then you're beating your head against the wall a lot, especially with some of the fights in this game. Some of them are definitely significantly tougher than others, so I guess in that regard the balance is a little bit out of whack, but that could just be being bad, which, don't get me wrong, I am. But nevertheless, I still certainly enjoyed it. I would put it also on the generally good tier. Also probably below Delver and Eldritch. Actually, maybe I'll put it above Eldritch, because the grinding in Titan Souls is nowhere near as painful as the grinding in Eldritch was, because in Titan Souls, let's say you're fighting a tough boss, you go in, you shoot him to wake him up, you dodge, you get killed, you're in and out in like 30 seconds. In Eldritch, you start up a new run, you go through the first area, try to collect as much materials as you can, almost die, go into the toughest area to get that one out of the way first, get very close to the end, and then you die, and then you lose all your progress, and there goes 30 minutes as opposed to 30 seconds at worst, which is significantly more painful. And I suppose a pattern going forward is, if the loss of a run is more painful, generally the less fun I had with it, so that'll definitely apply later on. But for now, with that in mind, yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this tier. Titan Souls was a good game, highly recommend it. Alright, okay. The big four. These next four are pretty darn good. Alright. Legend of Grimrock. Oh yeah. Honestly, gameplay-wise, and I guess genre-wise, you'll probably already know what the next four games are. Is probably my favorite out of all the games I've played. I seriously love the gameplay loop of these games. It is really hard to explain, but I don't know, it works. Alright, it works. I really like them. Yeah, so that's all I really have to say in that regard. The pacing, the story of the first Grimrock is probably the weakest out of all of these, to be fair. That doesn't mean it's bad whatsoever. In fact, it's still really good. I also really like the twist ending. I will say though, this being the earliest one, there were definitely a few issues with it that lower it compared to the others, just because they were kind of figuring things out. One of them is definitely the lack in graphical fidelity. Well, okay, let me rephrase. The game looks fine, it's just the environments that you're in are very samey for pretty much the entire game, which, once again, I mean, graphics aren't everything. However, it definitely does show its faults compared to the rest that we'll talk about in a second. And there's also a few other minor gameplay things. I can't think of them at the moment. However, there were definitely things that got fixed in future installments that if I were to go back to this one, I would definitely notice and probably enjoy less. So that is why if you intend to play these games, definitely play them in the order that I played them in, so they become less and less of an issue. With all that in mind, the first Legend of Grimrock goes straight to the top of generally good. Yeah, I think, once again, I'm definitely biased. That's why this list is rated based on my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I really jive with the gameplay of these games, so absolutely enjoy it a lot. Yeah, that's not to discredit any of these games. It's just more so a testament of how much I like Legend of Grimrock 1. And speaking of the Legend of Grimrock 2, this one goes straight to best of the best. Yeah, literally just an improvement of Legend of Grimrock 1. I mean, the story is significantly deeper. The graphics got a massive overhaul, improved a lot of quality of life stuff. One thing I will say that is slightly worse than the first is due to the open-ended nature of this one. Yeah, the first Legend of Grimrock was very linear. Like, there were a few times that you kind of like branch out a little bit, but most of the time that would just be for like a single level, and after all that branching out stuff was done, you'd move on to the next level and then you'd leave all that behind. This one, because you're on an island, pretty much the whole game, except for a few parts, is branching. You can pretty much choose to go however which way you want, which is definitely a good thing, because it gives you more choice, but it definitely does make things a lot more confusing because you can't be entirely sure if you are actually done with an area fully, because you go in, you do most of everything, then it seems like, well, okay, I can't seem to progress any further here, so I guess I'll go to the other places, and then you go do that, and then you're at an impasse. You're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I feel like I've done everything. And then you'll have to go through literally every single area to check to see if you've actually done everything, which definitely kind of sucks, because it's not really a problem that the first game had. Although, once again, it's generally a minor issue in the grand scheme of things, because the good far outweighs the bad, honestly. Oh, and I guess one last minor nitpick I'll have with it is that one of the final bosses, there's two final bosses. One's kind of like a bonus boss thing, I guess. I mean, I'll probably put gameplay footage of each one as I'm talking about it, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the first, like, in my opinion, the true final boss is really, really good, and definitely even an improvement of the final boss of the first game, which, once again, the boss of the first game is honestly nearly perfect, in my opinion, and very fitting, especially for the type of game that it is. Yeah, but once again, going back to Grimrock 2, the final boss of that, on the top of that castle, was phenomenal. It was really, really cool. But then the secret boss after that was kind of a disappointment. I don't really know what the point of that was. I do like that after beating it, it allows you to go through and basically unlock anything that you weren't able to when you initially played through it. But at that point, since you've already beaten the game, it's kind of pointless, because really the only things you can unlock are just the random gold locks that give you weapons and stuff like that, but where you're going to use them because you've already killed everything. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, those are two just minor things which can definitely be played around, because if you know where you're going, then that fixes the first problem. And the second boss that I was ranting about is optional as far as I know. You don't actually have to interact with it. You can just do the first final boss, and you can just say, okay, that's a fitting ending. And it is a fitting ending, especially narratively. So, yeah, once again, just very minor issues in the grand scheme of things. I absolutely love this game. Highly recommend it. Once again, though, I would recommend playing the first game first before you play this, just so you can see how much of an improvement it is. And speaking of improvement, Vaporum. So this one was made by a different dev, but wow, they absolutely stepped up Grimrock. They stepped up the framework that was set up by Grimrock, because look, the jump from Grimrock 1 to Grimrock 2 is the jump from Grimrock 2 to this game. It seriously solved literally all the rest of the problems I had with Grimrock 2, especially in terms of like the minutia, like the load times especially. Like, dude, it is not even close. Literally, Grimrocks take like half a minute at best to load, but Vaporum takes literally a split second. It is so nice. It is genuinely something I don't think I could go back to. And continuing the praise, they once again fixed so many small issues I had with it, like the hunger mechanics. While I do appreciate the hunger mechanics in the Grimrock games, they definitely have some realism to them. They were ultimately kind of just busy work, I suppose. Oh no, your guys are starving. Time to go find some food. Yeah, that's not even a problem in this game. So I'm really glad that they fixed that, among many other things. And also, the story in this game is on a whole another level. They got actual voice acting. They got really good writing as well. Like, everybody acts realistically. Like, nobody does like any dumb decisions or anything like that just to further the narrative or anything like that. Like, it all makes sense to me. And there's also, I feel a lot more, well, I don't know, you feel like you have more variety as you play the game, whereas in the Grimrocks you set your class at like the start, whereas in Vaporum you can kind of like mix and match as you go. I don't know, that's probably a bad way to word it. You're more locked in with Grimrock, but you're definitely more flexible with Vaporum. So in that regards, yeah, it's better than Grimrock 2. This game, once again, just gotta sing the same praises that I sung the other two. It literally just improves them. And yeah, I mean, obviously Vaporum is more of like a steampunk game, whereas Grimrocks are more just fantasy. But I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just an improvement. That's all I can say. Like, all three of these are really good, but Vaporum is definitely better than both of the Grimrocks. So highly recommend it once again. But once again, just play it in the same order that I streamed it, because seriously, I don't think I could go back with all the quality of life improvements. I think, honestly, truthfully speaking, if you ported over a lot of like the optimizations and the quality of life fixes over to Grimrock 2 and then over to Grimrock 1, then, you know, I could honestly subsidize off of these three games literally forever. But yeah, I guess that is kind of funny for me to say, because I mean, I haven't really played any of these games outside of streaming. But yeah, that's besides the point. Very good games. Alright, and with all of that out of the way, you would expect me to praise Vaporum Lockdown, the prequel to Vaporum, on the same regard. But honestly, I don't have a lot of the same praises to say about this one. This one was a little bit disappointing, actually. I didn't hate it at all. In fact, compared to Grimrock 2, it is definitely leagues better because, I mean, it's based off of the first Vaporum. However, the jump from Grimrock 1 to Grimrock 2 and Grimrock 2 to Vaporum is not there. Alright? They didn't really improve upon it nearly as much as they did before, which obviously, innovation isn't everything. If you have something that works, then it works. Why change it? So in terms of gameplay, like, it is definitely on the same level as Vaporum, and story-wise, it does definitely have a lot of the same highs that Vaporum did. I do feel like there were a few parts that that definitely weren't as good as Vaporum, probably because they probably weren't initially planned. I feel like they were kind of added in, so them not being addressed in the first Vaporum definitely does feel a little bit weird, but for the most part, though, it is still really good. I will say, though, unlike Vaporum, there were definitely a lot more parts that I got stuck at and were definitely tougher, so the difficulty did bump up. However, it wasn't necessarily the fun kind of difficult, it was more just, what exactly am I supposed to do? So, yeah, in that regards, it is a little bit unfortunate. Still, though, I really did enjoy it, and I would highly recommend it. If you enjoyed the first Vaporum, you will enjoy this, because I definitely did enjoy it. I'm still putting this in best of the best. It is definitely better than Grimrock 2, and the first Grimrock and all these others, but honestly, the original is better, truth be told. But yeah, once again, highly recommend both of these. Highly recommend all 4 of these games. They are just, I don't know, they're so much fun to play. That's all I can say. I had a blast playing them, and I'm honestly kind of sad that they only lasted as long as they did, because I would love to play them more. But, oh well. Alright, so we get to the first round of Spooktober games. So every October except for this year, sorry guys, I dedicated the month to playing horror games. Now, these were generally a bit shorter. I tried to aim for that so that way I could try to get in as many as I could, although sometimes I would misjudge them and end up playing a bit of a longer one that would kind of bleed into the November and potentially even December months. But this first year, it didn't really go too far. So let's jump into it. So the first game is Burger and Frights. This one is probably the shortest game I've played by a long shot, because that one was kind of bundled into like a hodgepodge stream where I was playing a whole bunch of random garbage. But this is certainly not garbage. I thought it was pretty nice. It isn't anything groundbreaking, once again. It is just a very short little indie horror experience. But for what it is, it's not bad, That, especially that one scare, you know the one I'm talking about. That was a very well done scare, I gotta say. Although, once again, it's not anything deep. I would probably put it at the very top of Had Some Issues. Here's kind of the thing with like the naming scheme. The issues, the quote unquote issues with this game is that it, due to it being very in and out, like fast food, I guess, which, hey, it's fitting because burger. Yeah, you're not going to be thinking about this game for very long, I suppose, even though it does have a pretty bombshell ending. I mean, like, I didn't leave the game saying, wow, that was one of the best games I've ever played in my life, but, yeah, I mean, I didn't have a bad time playing it. It was also probably the highlight of that stream, honestly. The rest of the stuff that I played was not really anything special. So, props to you, Burgers and Fright. Yeah, I'll put it there because definitely more respectful of your time than Brighter Day was, and yeah, definitely doesn't really compare to any of these, I feel. So, there it goes. Right, and had some issues. Okay, the next one. Alright. The first Kumakira game. So, yeah, obviously we have a bit of a history with Kira's games for no particular reason. But honestly, truth be told, I was quite surprised with Lost in Vivo. I feel like Lost in Vivo is this dev's magnum opus, truth be told. I think this is genuinely the best game that they have ever made. It is really good, all I can say. It is a very nice horror experience. It's actually scary. It has actually good replay value for as linear as it is, especially. A ton of references that are actually really cool to look and see what they are, and a very compelling story. Really good puzzle design as well. That one puzzle, the bulimia one, that is genuinely one of the best puzzles I've ever experienced in a video game, honestly. And yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? They really cooked with this game. I do wish that they would do more with it, because there was a ton of bonus content with this game as well, which was also really appreciated. But there were also like those tapes, and there were only like 2 of them, and it seemed like they were going to make more, but I feel like they kind of just abandoned that for their next project, which we'll get to in a second, which I feel like is kind of a shame, because I feel like there was a whole lot more that could be done there. So I don't know, maybe they'll return to it one day. I sincerely hope they do, because yeah, I mean, this was easily their best game, I feel. And yeah, with all that in mind, I gotta put it probably I definitely enjoyed it more than Eldritch, and definitely Titan Souls, probably even more than Delver, honestly. But I don't think I can say I liked it more than Grimrock, because, I mean, I'm kind of biased with the Grimrocks and the Vaporums of those games. I really love those games. But, yeah, I mean, this is easily one of the best horror games I've played on my channel. Yeah, so, congrats. That's all I can really say. Very good game, highly recommend it. Alright, Sanitarium. Okay, alright. Look, this game is old, alright? It may have not aged the best gameplay-wise. All you really do is just kind of click around. It's more of a point-and-click game than anything. But, I mean, come on. It's a classic, alright? It's a classic. Yeah, I mean, really the main thing that's carrying this game, I guess nowadays, is probably its story, because it definitely doesn't have the most dynamic or interesting gameplay. But, I mean, once again, come on, you gotta respect your elders, you know? And this is certainly one of them. I will be a little bit more generous to these other games, because, I mean, just because something's classic doesn't necessarily mean that it's, you know, perfect by any means, you know. But I will say, though, definitely didn't get any headaches, so better than Eldritch. Oh, I guess I'll put it there, because the gameplay loop definitely hard carries Titan Souls, and yeah, I'll keep it there. I mean, it's still, once again, it's in generally good. which, I don't know, maybe I should have retitled these tiers because it seems like I really kind of undersell them with them. But yeah, I mean, basically everything in these two tiers are basically S and A, and even Eldritch here I would still say is like mid A. Honestly, it isn't even like low A; it's mid A. Yeah, so in that regard, Sanitarium is also probably like 3/4 of the way A, I suppose. That's how you want to put it. But yeah, it's a classic. You know, very, very compelling story for what it is. Good characters. Yeah, I had a good time playing it. Even with some of the stream issues we had that one time, I had a good time. Now, what I didn't have a good time with is Kumakira's newest game, Lunacid. So, this one, I guess I've technically played twice on stream. We played it when it first came out in like early access, and I gotta say, this is probably the most disappointed I've ever been with a game on stream. I was seriously hyped for this game because, I mean, obviously, you know, especially at the time, I really was like on the Akuma Kira train. You know, I was still riding the Spookies train, which I'm very glad I'm off that now. And obviously, I really liked Lost in Vivo, as you can tell where I put it. And when I saw that they were developing a, you know, an RPG, something that could possibly be on the lines of the Grimrocks, I was hyped, you know. But when it came out and I played it for a bit, I soon realized that, I may have overhyped it just a little bit. But it's fine. I mean, obviously, the first time around, it was early access. You know, there was definitely tons of stuff that had to be added. There were plenty of areas that weren't finished yet. Very fair. And, you know, the combat was a bit bare bones, but, I mean, who knows, maybe they'd improve it one day. And, obviously, the story was very lacking. You know, all that kind of stuff. And there was only voice acting in like the opening scene. All the other characters had like baby, you know, text box, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, it's an early access game. All right, it'll get better. And then that Spooktober, an update came out, whole new area. Okay, cool. Let's check it out. And you know, aside from how much of a pain it was to actually figure out how you're supposed to get to that new content, once you actually got to it, you know, it's a good 30 to 40 minutes of fun. What do you do now, though? Now that it's done, nothing, because that's basically all that they added. Well, okay, you know what? That's fine. I'll just wait for the next update, and then I think it did get updated like one more time with like another update that was on like the level of the one that I returned to it. However, I was like in the middle of playing something else and I didn't even notice it. But then, about a year ago, the game finally came out in full release. It had been like over a year since I had last touched the game. Surely they'd have fixed it by now. No, they did not. Yeah. I would not play this game again. It needs a significant overhaul for me to actually consider coming back to this game, because all the issues that it had at the start were basically still here. Outside of continuing and exploring just for the sake of exploring, there's literally no narrative incentive to actually do anything that you actually do in this game. Which really sucks, because in Lost in Vivo, there was a really good incentive to actually keep going, you know? Well, to be fair, I guess you didn't need much. You're out saving your dog, so of course you're gonna go do that. Whereas this one, it's like, oh, you're down a well now, so I guess escape, but like not really, sorta. It's very confusing. I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's just so much missed potential. I know I'm just kind of rambling and I'm not being the most coherent with my criticisms, I guess, but I don't know. This game is just very bare bones, and I was just very disappointed by it. And yeah, I think you can't just add more stuff to it to get me to come back to it. It seriously needs a complete overhaul with basically everything, honestly. Story, gameplay, maybe even the characters. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, like the character designs of like the enemies and the friendly NPCs are good. It's just that, I mean, they're very flat, I guess. Especially like the friendly NPCs. I mean, you have no real incentive to actually interact with any of them, because I mean, any of the shopkeepers, you find plenty of stuff out in the world, so you don't need to buy anything from them unless you're spamming the use key, I guess. And none of the NPCs really progress the story at all. You don't need to actually interact with any of them, I feel, until like the very end, where they kind of just come out of nowhere, as though they've been there the entire time, which I guess technically they have, but you know, it's only in spirit, if you want to call it that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of going off the rails, I guess. I was just very disappointed with this game. Yeah, I would not play it again once again. And unfortunately, it seems like this was the vision that the developer had, based on the various community posts that I've seen about this game. They kind of want to continue it along in the state that it's at, and just add quote unquote improvements like Steam trading cards and stuff like that, instead of, you know, whatever. I don't know. I'm gonna try not to be too negative. We'll have time for that later. But yeah, once again, Lunacid, very disappointed. Definitely the most disappointed I've been, and that is why I scrubbed any signs of hype I once had for it clean off the face of the earth. Alright, on a much higher note though, Inscryption. This game is really, really good. I remember when it first came out, I had heard a lot about it. I literally couldn't escape it, and I was like, I mean, maybe it's alright. Then I got recommended to actually play it on stream, and when I did, holy crap, I realized, yeah, okay, this game is really, really good. Phenomenal story, phenomenal pacing, really captivating gameplay. And dude, the music is so good. The music is so good in this game. That's all I can really say. I will say though, before I get too crazy and put it like at the top of best of the best, I will say though, this game is basically split into two games. One is the base game, which if it was just the base game, I would probably put it at the very top of best of the best. However, it also has Casey's mod, or the endless mode, I suppose. And just like how I kind of had some issues with Eldritch in regards to the grindiness of it, that is certainly tenfold in regards to Casey's mod, especially once you get to the higher level challenges. It becomes absolutely brutal. I mean, we were attempting that game for like the better part of a year, maybe even a year and a half, to try to finally beat all the challenges. Eventually we were able to do it, but man, it is not something that I want to do again. So in that regard, I definitely do have to dock a few points, because it wasn't the fun kind of difficult. It was the okay, you need to get seriously lucky if you have any chance of winning, and even if you do, you need to play absolutely perfectly, otherwise it's all gone, and that's not my definition of fun, honestly. So yeah, once again, it does get docked down a little bit, However, not by much, because even with all that in mind, having a good run in Casey's mod was still a lot of fun. So, with all that in mind, I'm going to put it at the bottom of best of the best because, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put it above Grimrock too. Because, okay, you know what? I won't be that generous. Alright. Sorry, Inscryption. Definitely better than Grimrock 1 though, because, I mean, yeah, definitely Inscryption has more polish, I feel. And it even has more polish than Grimrock 2, I feel. It's just that there definitely was some parts that I didn't like in Inscryption, mainly just the Casey's mod part. Whereas, for the most part, I enjoyed the entirety of Grimrock 2. So, that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, still though, very good. Cannot recommend it enough. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I really have to say. Good game. Alright, Red Dead Redemption 2, you already know. It's not even fair to compare this game with literally any of these others. I mean, it's not even fair. Like, it's serious, it's not even fair. Okay, maybe gameplay-wise, okay, if we're talking absolutely gameplay-wise, it would probably be somewhere like here. Because, yeah, I mean, all you really do is shoot and sometimes follow people around and stuff like that, you know, typical video game stuff. But dude, the story is next level, dude. It is, I mean, like, people gush about this game for a reason. It is so good. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, even the best story beats in Vaporum don't even come close to even like the lower parts of Red Dead 2. It is okay. Well, maybe they're on like the same level, I guess. I don't want to be too negative about these goats, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even really want to say too much about Red Dead 2 because, yeah, you need to play this game. I am incredibly hyped for the first one, especially now that it's out on Steam. I'll be getting to that one very soon, but I made a promise that I'll play Subnautica Below Zero before I get to that, so yeah. But yeah, Red Dead 2 is going to be at top of the best, and I don't think anything's going to dethrone it. Alright, then we get on to the next year's Spooktober, and I will say, I did make an initial tier list of the first year and second year's Spooktober games, minus the last one I played because I wasn't finished with it yet. And in that tier list, I said that this year's was slightly better than last year's. I don't know what crack I was smoking because, no, absolutely not. Honestly, really only one of these games even kind of comes close to the level of games that we were playing playing the year before. I mean, like, even literally in the initial tier list itself, the two S tier games were games that I was playing the year before. There were literally no S tier games in that year that I made that tier list, so what was I even on about? I don't even know. Whatever. We're making a new tier list. This one's going to be true, at least for at least as I'm making it. Yeah, okay, let's just get to it. Alright, Iron Lung. Okay, I'm gonna be real. People love this game. I genuinely don't get what people like about it. This game was boring. Okay, I'm putting it above Lunacid because I didn't really know what to expect. Well, I had high expectations going into it because people were saying that this was like the scariest game that had like ever come out in recent time, and it was like, oh, such an existential dread or whatever. And I played it, and it's just Captain Clueless. Which, don't get me wrong, like, it was kind of cool, and especially the build up. The build up was really, really good, just for a payoff that absolutely sucked. Literally, the ending of this game is terrible. Like, it is terrible. I do not know why this game got so hyped up. I mean, if they're just talking about like the build up and that's like the only thing that people are talking about, then I guess I could get it. But I mean, like, I don't know, everything else was just kind of boring. I mean, like, the premise was okay, I guess. Like the atmosphere, okay, well, the atmosphere helped to build the build up, so I guess that was pretty good. But yeah, the gameplay, I mean, it wasn't anything incredible. I mean, it was unique, I guess, but I mean, all you're literally doing is just pushing buttons, which I guess, I mean, you could boil down literally any game to that. However, this one is a lot more literal than you know, something like literally any of these others. But yeah, once again, I don't understand the hype that this game had. It was very disappointing, and it wasn't even like a hard game either. Like, I beat the game without dying once. In fact, literally, you can go to my Steam achievements. I literally don't have the achievement where you die. So, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't get the hype. I don't understand why Markiplier is making a movie out of this game. Why this game specifically? Like, I mean, it's probably the last game I would make a movie out of all of these, honestly, because honestly, you know, making Lunacid into a movie would actually probably fix a lot of the issues that it has, especially with this gameplay, because then you can just focus entirely on the story aspect, which, yeah, while they aren't great, I mean, you could definitely make it into something great. Whatever. Okay, I'm getting all over the place. Point is, Iron Lung was pretty disappointing, but I didn't really know what to expect with it, whereas Lunacid, I had much higher expectations. So, in that regard, yeah, right now it's at the top of Wouldn't Play Again, but yeah, it might get dethroned. And moving on, we have the Hex, Inscryption devs game that came before it. Nowhere near as good as Inscryption, that's for sure. I feel like it did a lot of the same stuff that Inscryption did. However, Inscryption definitely improved upon what was going on here. It definitely did the guy who stumbles into something that he doesn't really understand the full extent of thing better in the Inscryption. Both by making a much more likable character and one that's a bit more realistic, I suppose. Like, I mean, okay, going into spoilers here, in Inscryption, you know, you have the Luke Carter guy. You know, he finds the cursed Inscryption game. You know, obviously it makes sense why he wouldn't know exactly what he's getting into, as compared to the developer guy in the Hex. Like, how do you develop these, you know, alive game characters and not understand that they're alive, you know? Like, I don't know. Or did he know that they were alive? I don't really remember. The story in this game was definitely a lot more forgettable than Inscryption. Like, the ending of Inscryption is still stuck with me. I genuinely forgot the ending of this game. So in that regard, I'm going to put it at the very bottom of had some issues, because I don't know. I guess it's not entirely fair because this game came before Inscryption, but I had much more expectations going into this one than I did with Brighter Day. I feel like Brighter Day executes what it was trying to accomplish significantly better than what the Hex would, and then how the Hex did. So yeah, putting that there, I guess. I don't think there is anything else. I will say I do like the gameplay variety that was in the Hex. That was really nice, how like every character you played had like a different thing going on. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, that's really the only thing I feel that was really going for this game. I feel like definitely, once again, it could have done more. And I guess that's where Inscryption comes in. Inscryption does this again, and it does more, and better, and bigger. And it really worked out for him, because Inscryption became a sensation, and I feel like it deserved it. But anyways, that's besides the point. Alright, Buddy Simulator 1984. easily the best game I played that Spooktober. Yeah, this one was just really solid, honestly. It was pretty messed up, not gonna lie, but yeah, I really liked it. I'm going to put it definitely in the generally good. Yeah, this was the game I was talking about that compares. Honestly, I'm actually gonna put it above Sanitarium. Above Titan Souls. Below Delver though, because Delver is really solid. But yeah, I mean, definitely Buddy Simulator. The strongest aspect of it is probably its characters, honestly, and definitely the connections you have with it. So I guess it's a lot like Undertale in that regard, which maybe I should play that game on stream one of these days. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, just very solid, honestly. All I can really say, I had a blast playing it. It was pretty short though, which kind of sucked. But I mean, you know, I guess I'd prefer it to be short and sweet than for it to draw out and be well, annoying, I guess. But I mean, even if it did, I still probably would have had a good time playing it because it is just very solid, and I certainly enjoyed my time playing with it. Alright, off. So this one is interesting because this is the only game I think that isn't on Steam that I played. And it was kind of meh, honestly. Yeah, it's in like the same genre as Buddy Simulator, where it's kind of like I don't know, RPG Maker-esque game, I guess. That's the best way to put it. It was very, very weird. Like, Buddy Simulator was weird, but at least it was coherent. Off was almost incoherent at times. I didn't really understand what the heck was going on at certain elements, and I get that that's kind of what the intent of the game was. I think it was definitely meant to be very surreal, but I think that was kind of to the detriment of it. With that in mind, I would probably put it at the top of Had Some Issues. The strongest element of this game was probably its art direction, I'd say. As weird as it was, once again. But, yeah, I mean, it's more of just, I don't know, it's less of a game and more just an interactive piece of art, I guess. That's the best way to put it. Because, yeah, I mean, gameplay-wise, it is not very deep. I mean, you just kind of walk around, and honestly, you don't even really have to engage in the combat encounters as well. You can just turn on the auto mode or whatever it is, and you'll probably actually be better off doing that because the computer is definitely way better at the combat than you are, probably, because it instantly reacts rather than oh, whatever. Okay, I'm getting off track. I'm getting off topic, I guess. But yeah, I'll keep it there. Put it above Burger and Fries because, I mean, you know, I don't know. I definitely remember it a lot more than Burger and Frights. It was definitely a lot more memorable of a game. But yeah, very weird game. And once again, not necessarily to the benefit of it. Alright, Noita. This is the other game besides Titan Souls that I have played extensively outside of streaming. And extensively, indeed I have, because I have basically like 300 hours in this game. Noita is an interesting one because it is a very good game, although considering that this is based on my opinion of it, I've been burned on this game, and I am currently in a state that I'm also kind of burned in this game. Yeah, so I don't know. This one's weird because I don't stream it consistently, not anymore at least. And honestly, at the current state, I don't think I would return to it for a good while, because right now I just kind of have no interest in playing it. Even just outside of streaming it. I have not made like any sort of progress towards where we were last time, even with all like the new update stuff that came out a couple of months ago. But yeah, I don't. Okay, this is probably the only one I don't really know where to place, cause it's good, and I had a lot of fun playing it. But right now, I do not want to play it at all, and I don't even really want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That will certainly change, given more time. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to say. I'll put it. I don't know. Honestly. I'll put it at the very bottom of generally good, because look, I mean, it is a brutal game. Like it is the definition of the issues I was talking about with Eldritch, where you soak so much into a single run that when you do finally die, it is crushing. It's probably the most crushing out of literally all these games, honestly. Because you can literally spend like multiple hours on a single run and it can just as easily be taken away from you, which is never fun, no matter what. But I mean, it's still a very well-made game with a lot of strategy to it, and a really nice soundtrack, and really nice visual style as well. And I mean, no two run is going to be exactly the same, even if you're trying to go for like the same strategies. So there is a ton of variance to it, but once you play for 300 hours, yeah, it definitely starts to hurt if you don't make a whole lot of progress, which, there's me, I guess. But yeah, I mean, okay, I was gonna say do still highly recommend it, but I don't know, this one's kind of hard to recommend. I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed streaming it for the most part. I enjoyed the community aspect, even if sometimes people were a little bit backseaty at times, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I'll just keep it there for now. If I ever do make another one of these tier lists, like maybe in another 4 years, do expect the position of this one to change, because I will probably move some of the positions of these around, if need be. But yeah, out of all of them, this is certainly the most fluid out of all of them. Ask me on any given day, my opinion on this one will certainly change. Right now, though, I'm going to keep it here. Alright, Sons of the Forest. Alright, this was, I think, the longest game that we played. I think there's like 36 or 38 streams of this, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, another thing is that this was also the only game, besides Lunacid, I guess, that we played both in early access and in full release. We were kind of playing it as it became a full release game. I feel like, though, generally there is still a lot of like the same stuff to rank in it, so I don't think that's going to sway my opinion too much. So, with all that in mind, how did I feel about it? So, the survival aspects, and for the vast majority of the game, it's honestly really good. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a very jank game, especially we came to it literally right after Red Dead, so it was a bit jarring seeing such polish and then going into pretty jank experience. But I mean, for what it was, I had a good time playing it. It was a lot of fun. The base building aspects, as open-ended as they were, definitely led to a lot of fun projects. And I will say the NPCs, like the friendly NPCs, Kelvin, is probably the most useful NPC in literally any game I've ever played. Like, genuinely, they actually made friendly NPCs useful. And same with the other lady as well. She was actually useful the few times that she showed up. Yeah, so I gotta really give it credit there. And I mean, besides like a few minor things, like it's a fairly solid game, like especially a survival game. So yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of fun. I will say though, the biggest flaw easily is the story. Yeah, is the story, especially near the end. Because for the vast majority of the game is a very slow burn experience, very tense, very very creepy, especially with the body horror. This is a very body horror game. But then near the end, it kind of does what the Resident Evil series has done, and it just kind of delves into pure action, and it just kind of goes completely off the rails and becomes very hard to follow. Introduces a whole bunch of characters that are like, am I supposed to know who you are? And yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's kind of fun bad, I suppose. Like, especially that final cutscene was freaking hysterical. Like I was either dying or I was like on the verge of dying of laughter because yeah, I don't know. It is crazy, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Otherwise, once again, putting that aside, because that was really only a thing going on in like the second to last stream. Whereas the rest of it was, that very slow burn experience, with just a few other minor issues with too. But yeah, overall, still pretty good. I would also rank this one pretty highly. I would say I enjoyed it more than Eldritch. I'm also putting it above Noida because, once again, I still really don't know where to rate that one. Above Sanitarium, above Titan Souls, yeah, probably above Buddy. Probably above 9. I'll put it here because I don't know, gameplay wise I think Delver is better. However, in terms of providing more, Sons of the Forest definitely did. Story wise though, Lost in Vivo blows Sons of the Forest out of the park. And I mean, gameplay wise I feel like they're on like the same level. Yeah, okay, I'll put it there for now. I might stew on that one for a little bit, but that's where I'm gonna put it for now. Okay, and then we get to last year's spooky games. We only have 3. We're slowly losing more and more. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised if we only ended up playing 2 spooky games this year if I didn't completely forget about Spooktober. Sorry once again. But yeah, this year was, or last year was definitely the weakest because first game we played with Crypt. You want to know why I made the torture tier? This game is an absolute piece of garbage. Genuinely screw this game. This was probably the only game that I can imagine myself playing, at least knowingly, that genuinely filled me with unbridled rage. Like, this game, okay, alright, I understand this game was made with the intent of doing this, so I guess it succeeds at it. But yeah, this game is genuinely hostile. I don't know the best way to put it. Like preventing you from being able to win because you didn't check something in the options is stupid on so many levels. And then the difficulty is absolutely brutal. Definitely on the same level as some of those. And yeah, I mean, aside from the kind of cool visual style, literally everything about it sucks. The puzzles freaking suck. The monster isn't even scary. It's just annoying. I don't think there's any music in this game either, so it doesn't even have any of that going for it. And honestly, I'm just kind of mad that I dedicated 3 whole streams to it, because it did not deserve any of them, honestly. Yeah, screw this game, honestly. Straight into the torture tier. Yeah, all I have to say about it. Alright, Cry of Fear. This one is an interesting one because I'm gonna get a bit meta on this one, I suppose. This one was kind of a pain in the butt to stream because we ran into so many technical issues with it that it really did interfere with me actually being able to play it. Now, obviously, you know, some of these games, especially earlier on, I definitely ran into some issues in streaming, which definitely got in the way of playing it. However, this one was the only one where like got so in the way that it really did affect the way I went about playing it, which really does kind of suck. Although I'm going to try my best to ignore that aspect of it as I rate it. Which, by the way, how will I rate it? It's okay. I mean, this was a game that all like the big dogs played back in the day, so I guess I had a bit of a high expectation going into it. It wasn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't bad either. I suppose the most comparable game in this list would probably be Lost in Vivo, but Lost in Vivo blows it out of the water. Like, not even gonna lie. The story is not as good as Lost in Vivo. The gameplay is definitely not as good, especially, dear God, the parkour. The parkour in this game was absolutely painful. Like, there's literally a section on one of my streams where I spent literally 10 minutes trying to get past a stupid parkour section. It completely weighed it down. And I will say, progression-wise, I think this was like the most backtracking I've ever actually done in any sort of game. Like, you literally go all the way back to the start at one point, which is kind of crazy. Not really like a good or bad thing, I guess. Just kind of an interesting element to it, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like this game is really in the middle. The good and the bad really equilibrate things, I guess. So in that regard, I'll probably put it in the had some issues tier, probably at the top. Yeah, I'll put it there. I didn't have a bad time playing it. Once again, it was a bit of a pain streaming it, but yeah, I mean, aside from that, yeah, it was just okay. I don't really have much else to say about it. Like, there were a few scary moments, although, yeah, I do feel like Lost in Vivo scared me more than this one did, because this one more so relied on, like, jump scares, whereas Lost in Vivo definitely did a lot more psychological stuff. So, yeah, once again, just gonna put it in the had some issues tier. That's all I really have to say. Alright, and then the last Spooktober game I played, Silt. This game was okay. I would put it I'll put it at the very bottom of generally good. I really liked the visual style of it, and honestly, it had a pretty solid gameplay loop too. It reminded me a lot of that old game called Limbo. That's another game I should stream one of these days. Definitely nowhere near as good as Limbo for sure, but for being underwater Limbo, it's not terrible, you know? I mean, I liked it. It was probably the best game I played that Spooktober. In fact, yeah, it is. Yeah, easily. Yeah, I mean, it was solid. Once again, the weakest thing I feel was the story because I genuinely had no idea what was going on. It did feel like it was kind of building up to something, and it didn't really pay off at all, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. Once again, it was good. Um, yeah, even though I probably wouldn't play it again, because I mean, it did feel like a pretty complete experience. And there isn't too much replayability to it. I definitely enjoyed what I did, and yeah, once again, just had a good time playing it for the most part. So, putting it in generally good. Alright, and then the most recent game that we played, Subnautica. Now, do keep in mind, at the time of recording this, I literally beat it like 2-3 days ago. So, this is definitely the one that I had the least amount of time to think about. But, I mean, considering that I have played it on my YouTube channel before, which this concludes the redo of classics series, by the way, which probably will actually be the final redo of classics. Going on a bit of a tangent here, but all the other games that I initially played, I don't really see myself returning to for one reason or another. If you want me to elaborate, feel free to ask. Yeah, so anyways, without further ado, Subnautica. Yeah, this was a good game. Very grindy though, which really sucks. When you aren't grinding and you're exploring and all that kind of stuff like that, it's really good, you know? But the problem is, yeah, you are grinding like 90% of the time in this game, which really, really sucks because grinding isn't very fun. Yeah, because you're mostly just kind of scavenging around for what you need, and yeah, a lot of the times it just takes way longer than it needs to, and it does kind of slow down the pace of the game, but definitely not for the better. I feel like even if the game would have been a lot shorter if you just spent more time actually exploring and doing the interesting stuff, it would have been a whole lot more enjoyable. But I still enjoyed it. Once again, it's still a very good game, very well made, and I'm certainly excited for Below Zero. I'm kind of curious as to how it compares to this one. I hope they improved a lot of the issues that I had with this one, although I have heard some less than savory things about it, so we'll just have to see. But that's neither here nor there. Once again, where do I rank Subnautica 1? And once again, if I do return to this tier list in 4 more years, I expect this to change. I would probably put it at the bottom of generally good. Yeah, I'll scoot Noida over here once again because I don't know how to feel about Noida. Okay, well, let me reevaluate Subnautica. So, I think it was better than Silt because there was more to it, and obviously the story was a lot better. The story in this game was honestly pretty solid, so I'll give it that. Less brutal than Eldritch. Probably a bit more objectively better than Sanitarium. More to it than Titan Souls, but didn't make me feel the same emotions that Buddy Simulator did. So I'll put it there. Once again, if I had more time to think about this game, and especially ask me again after I play Below Zero, my opinion on this could certainly change. So we'll just have to see. Alright, and that looks like everything. Wait a minute, aren't we forgetting something? Yep, it's time to talk about Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion. Alright. Yep, I've been saving this one because Oh boy, I have some things to say about it. So, as you probably know, I do owe a lot to Spookies. Obviously, it is where I started my streaming career. Obviously, I have a lot to be thankful for it because, yeah, I started streaming with it. I feel like a lot of people enjoyed it, and initially I did enjoy it a lot. Um, but over time, I definitely started to get a lot bored with it, and very tired of it, to the point that after I'd lost a very good run, I decided to call it right there, and I made a video about almost 3 years ago at this point, holy moly, where I said, alright, I'm done with Spookies, and I did a little bit of ranting about it, however I didn't go too hard. That changes today. So, that original video is not great. I do think it needed to be made. Obviously, I needed to get my thoughts out there, but considering how recent I had decided to make that decision, I was definitely still feeling a bit of a Stockholm syndrome with this game. I felt like, well, I can't just hate this game, I mean, I have a lot to be thankful for it, and obviously all my friends enjoy this game too, I can't look bad in front of them. Well, considering that I haven't spoken to a lot of those people in literal years at this point, I'd wager a guess to say that they probably don't care what I think about this game anymore. And honestly, that's fine by me, because you know what? Screw this game. Screw this stupid, boring, poorly made game, honestly. Bottom of torture tier. Genuinely, I do not understand why this game has a fandom. The only thing going for it is that the character designs of some of the monsters are kind of cool. That's it. And not even all of them. Some of them are just absolutely terrible. Yeah, I mean, the base game is boring. The two DLCs are fine, I guess. They're really short. They're nothing special. And then endless mode, genuine, actual torture. That is why we have the torture tier, people. I feel like I could tear into it more, but honestly, like, I have blurred this game from my memory. I just kind of want to move past it. I don't ever intend to play Spookies ever again, even if it gets a complete overhaul. I would much rather return to Lunacid or even Crypt, of all things, rather than Spookies. Yeah. I mean, I guess I should probably be somewhat respectful for it, because once again, I do have a lot to owe for it. However, if I could restart my streaming career again, I would certainly not dedicate the first couple of months solely to Spookies. We could have easily played way more interesting games in that time. And yeah, well, it is what it is. We live, we learn, we laugh, we love, and we hate Spookies. Okay, so with that, that is my complete 2024 games tier list. Is there anything I'd move around? Probably not. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed me rambling for however long this took. Once again, sorry about not uploading for 3 years at this point. I don't know if this necessarily signifies my return to video creation, but this was definitely a lot of fun to make, and I certainly hope you enjoyed it. Once again, the links will all be in the description of everything that I linked to, and yeah, once again, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you when I next see you. Have a happy new year, and yeah, have a good life. Bye-bye.